Hello friends, welcome to kodEdge. In today's video, we will learn about Spring Cloud Stream. Using this, we will be building a Kafka message producer consumer application, that is event-driven application. So for this demonstration, I am assuming that you have some basic knowledge of Kafka. So let's jump into the scenario that we will be building here. So this is the scenario we are going to consider for our demonstration, that is financial transactions and compliance monitoring. So this is our problem statement. So in the system, financial transactions are recorded, okay, and that need to be monitored to ensure compliance with the regulatory requirements and to detect fraudulent activities. So there is one system in which we want to record the financial transactions, okay, and this financial transaction we need to monitor to ensure the compliance with the regulatory requirements, and we also wanted to detect the fraudulent activities, okay. So how our system will be? So our system will involve producer that will send the transaction data on the Kafka topic. And we will have consumers which consumes the data from this Kafka topic to process the data, and it will generate the compliance report and it will detect the fraud. Okay, so this will be our system. So let's understand the components for our system. So we will have a producer which will handle the generation and sending of the transaction data. And we will have consumers which will process the transactions to ensure compliance and it will detect the fraudulent activities. So this will be a compliance monitoring service, and this will be fraud detection service. The compliance monitoring service will validate the transaction against the regulatory rules, and this fraud detection service will identify the pattern and it will send the fraud alerts. So we will have one topic, that is financial transaction. So this producer will send a message on this financial transaction topic. Then our monitoring service will consume this message and it will send the message on particular topic. So this compliance monitoring service will send the message on the compliance report topic, and this fraud detection service will send the message on the fraud alerts. Okay, so we are going to have multiple producer and consumers in our system. So definitely we are not going to implement the logic for the transaction validation and the fraud detection, as it is out of scope for this lecture. So as our main purpose of this lecture is to learn the Kafka integration in the Spring and how to produce and consume the messages. So let's jump into the demonstration. So let's go into the Spring initializer, and we are going to generate two services. So I am giving group name as a com.kodEdge. Artifact name I am giving as a transaction monitoring Kafka producer. I am keeping the same name for the project, and let's use the packaging as a jar. Java version I am using as a 17. So build system I'm using as a Maven, and this is the latest available Spring Boot version. So let's add a dependency. So first dependency will be for the Spring Cloud Stream. So let's search for the stream and just add this Cloud Stream dependency. And second dependency will be for the Kafka. So let's generate this project. And let's generate one more project that will be for the consumer. Okay, let's generate it. And let me open this project in the IntelliJ. So I have kept both the project in the same folder, that is Spring Cloud Stream example. So let me open the terminal. So this is my directory, and in the same directory I am keeping the both the project. Okay, so let's open this project, that is a producer. So here we will create one transaction class to send that data into the Kafka topic. So I'm creating a new class, name will be transaction, and this will be the code for the transaction. So let's understand what I am sending. So we will have transaction ID, amount, then the sender ID, receiver ID, type, currency, and the timestamp. So this is just a dummy data for the demonstration purpose. And one more thing, as we are going to generate some auto-generated IDs, for that purpose, we are going to add one more dependency in the pom.xml file, and that will be for the Apache common. So just add this dependency. This is for the Apache common. So I will explain why this dependency is required. Just reload the Maven. So it will download the dependency. Okay, so our transaction class is now ready. Now let's go to the main class. And here we will just create one dummy object for the transaction. So I'm creating a method. It will be get transaction. Okay. And here we will generate the object. So let's create the object for the transaction and let's set some values. And if you go into this class that is in the transaction, it requires some auto-generated IDs for transaction ID, sender ID, and the receiver ID. So here we will create new method which will generate some random string. That will be public string get random string. So this will just generate the dynamic random string for our IDs. And here we are going to use that Apache common library. So there is one utils that is random string util. And it will generate some random alphanumerics. And let's use this method to set the transaction ID. And further, I am appending some integer to this transaction ID. So for that as well, I am using random utils dot next int. Okay, so this is just I am generating some random ID. So same way I will fill the other data for this object. So for sender ID, receiver ID, I am generating some random string. Then type I am setting as a transfer. This is some random amount. For this as well, I am using random utils. In currency, I am sending some dummy string that is USD. Then this is the timestamp for the transaction. So data is ready. Now let's generate the producer. So you want to send this transaction data periodically on the Kafka topic. So how to generate the producer? So that is very easy. Within one step, you can generate the producer. So let's use the annotation that is bin. And let's define the method public. So here we are going to use functional interfaces. And for that, I am using the functional interface that will be supplier. Type will be transaction. And I am giving name as a send transaction to this method. So you can give any name to your method. And we will return this transaction data. Get transaction. Okay. So it will periodically send this data on the Kafka topic. Definitely Kafka topic we have not yet configured. So we will do that in a minute. So my IntelliJ suggesting some refactoring. So I'm just using that refactoring suggestion here. Replace lambda with the method reference. Okay. Now let's go into the resource. And here we are going to create one application.yaml file. So I'm defining our server port that will be 8081. Now to define the topic, let's use this Spring. In the Spring, we are going to use cloud. And inside the cloud, we need to define the function. And this is the definition for the function. Okay. So what is definition for the function? That is send transaction. So let's define that here. Next tag will be stream. And here we will provide the binding. So this will be not binders. This will be binding. Okay. And in the binding, we are going to use the tag that is send transaction out 0. Okay. So this name I am going to use here in the bindings. So what is the meaning of out 0? Out means you are going to send the message on the topic. What is the topic name? So it will be the destination, and topic name I am giving as a financial transaction. Okay. So what is the meaning of this configuration? We have this send transaction method, which is going to send the message on this particular topic. Now let's define one more configuration that is for the Kafka binder. So we will have a broker, and brokers will be on the localhost 9092. Let's add one more configuration. So that will be aligned with this cloud tag. So that will be integration. And here we will define the polar with the fixed delay of 500 millisecond, 5000 millisecond. So what it will do? It will send this message every 5000 millisecond. Okay, so our producer configuration is ready. You just have to define one method with particular functional interface. So we are just producing the message. That's why I'm using supplier as a function interface, and it will just send this message, that is transaction message, on this topic. Now let's define our consumer. So I'm just closing all the files here, and let's expand our another service. Now on the consumer side, as we are going to receive this message, we need some structure, right? So that structure we are going to use this transaction class, because we are going to receive the message in the same format. So to hold that message, we require some object. So we are going to use transaction message here, and let's define our consumer. So let's go into the main class. So how to define the consumer? Same way, you just have to use annotation, that is a bean, and just define the method. So here we are going to consume the message, right? So for that purpose, we are going to use functional interface, that is consumer, and type will be transaction. Let's import this class. Then I am giving name as a transaction consumer. Now how to consume this message? Just use the lambda function, transaction, and here we are going to just print the message. So let's remove this brackets are not required here. Okay, so our consumer is ready. Definitely we need to add configuration to bind the topic. So let's create a new configuration file here. That will be application.yaml file. So you can define the same configuration in application.properties file as well. In the official documentation, you can find the tags how to define the properties, but I prefer application.yaml file. So here I am defining the server port, that will be 8082. Next, in the same way, we will define the function definition and the binding. So let's use the tag Spring. In the Spring, we are using cloud. In the cloud, we are going to define the function, that will be definitions. So our first definition is this transaction consumer. Okay, now let's define the stream. Stream will have the bindings, and bindings will have the topic name. So I'm using the same definition name, that is transaction consumer. Now we are consuming the data, right? That's why we will write the in -0. So this 0 is required. Basically, this is the index of the input or output binding. It will be always a 0 for typically single input and the output function. Now let's define the destination. So what will be the topic? Topic name will be that we define here, that is financial transaction. So from this topic, we are going to consume the message. Next, let's define the Kafka broker. So let's copy paste from the previous configuration. So this will be the same configuration here. So this configuration will come under the stream. Okay, so our first consumer is ready. Now what we want to do? We want to do two operations here. Let me go to consumer. So we want to receive data from this topic, and first we want to generate the compliance report, and second we want to generate the fraud alerts. So let's define few more configuration here. So for the compliance report, I am going to create one more method, that will be consume and report. And for the fraud alerts, I am going to create this consume and report fraud. So you can give any name as per your requirement to the methods, but make sure to match that method name in the configuration. Now let's define this bindings here. So this method is going to receive message from this same topic, that will be financial transaction. And what it is going to do, once it generates the compliance report, it is going to produce this message, that compliance report, on different topic. So let's copy paste this tag. This will be out, and destination I am giving as a compliance report. Same way for the consume and report fraud. Let's define the binding for the consumer. So this is going to receive message from this topic. This will be out, and destination will be fraud alerts. So let's understand the configuration. So all our consumers are receiving the data from the same topic, that is financial transaction. So that's how we are defining the consumer. So when you consuming the message, you need to define the in the tag name, okay? And destination, that will be the topic from which you are going to consume the message. So here for the consume and report method, you are going to receive the message from this topic, and you are going to produce the message as well on this compliance report topic. Same for this method, that is consume and report fraud. It is going to consume message from the financial transaction, and it is going to produce the message, or it is going to send the message on this fraud alert topic. Okay, now let's define these methods in the main class. Now before defining the methods, we require some objects for the compliance report and the fraud alerts. So let me create a new class. I am giving name as a compliance report. Just dummy data we are going to use for this as well, and this will be the code for it. So it has just transaction ID, status, and the remark. And for the fraud alerts, I am going to create a new class. I am giving name as a fraud alert, and this will have data like transaction ID, type, and the details. So how to create the consumer? Let's use the annotation, that is a bin. Our method will be public. So here we are going to consume the data from the topic, as well as we are going to produce the data. So for that purpose, I am going to use functional interface, that is function. Let's import the class. So it will be from the Java utils. So what will be the type? So we are consuming the data from the topic, that is of the type transaction, right? And we are going to produce the data that is of the type compliance report. And let's give the same name that we have given in the configuration, that is consume and report for the method. So let's convert the transaction message into compliance report. So this is the code for the conversion. So very simple. I am just creating the object for the compliance report, and whatever the data I am getting from the transaction, I am just taking the transaction ID, and I am just assigning some dummy status, that is not approved, and just adding some dummy remark, that is transaction amount exceed allowed limit. And this data I am going to send on this topic, that is compliance report. Okay, so this is our first consumer and the producer. So this will act as a consumer as well as producer. Now let's define one more method. Let's use the annotation bin. Here as well I am going to use function interface. Type will be transaction, as we are receiving transaction from the topic, and we are going to produce fraud alert. Same name we need to give that we have given in the configuration, that is consume and report fraud. And let's add the conversion. So what I am doing here, I am just creating fraud alert object, taking a transaction ID from the transaction that we are receiving from the topic. I am assigning some dummy string here. Type will be no fraud, or you can say fraud found. Okay, and you can say transaction amount exceed allowed limit. And I'm just sending this data on the fraud alert topic. Okay, so that's it. So our producer consumer is also ready. Now next what we will do, we will start our Docker. We will pull the image for the Kafka. We will start Kafka on the Docker. Then we will start our applications. Okay, so let me open the terminal. So here I have already started Docker on my machine. Before running the Docker pull command, make sure you have already started the Docker on your machine. So let's use the command docker pull, and this is the image name. So here I'm using version 3.8.0. In your case, it might take some time to pull and download the image. In my case, I have already practiced this before demonstration. That's why it didn't take much time. Now after this, let's run the Kafka. So command will be this one, docker run -d-p. This will be the port 9092. This will be the name, and this is our image name. Let's enter. Okay, so it has started the Kafka. So you can see it has started the Kafka with the broker as a name. Now let me clear the window. Now next what we will do, we will start our application. So we have defined the topics here in our configuration. So if this topic does not exist in the Kafka cluster, it will automatically create these topics. So let's go to the producer first. and let's click on this run button. Okay, so it has started the producer. Let's start the consumer as well. So go to the consumer main class. So this is our main class for the consumer. Let's run this class as well. Okay, so consumer is also started. Now if you see, it is started receiving the messages. So now here we are not able to see the content of this message, right? So let's stop this server, and what we will do in the transaction, we will add toString method. So let's right click here, generate, and just generate the toString for all the properties. And let's restart the consumer server. Okay, so this is our producer. And if you see in the console, these are some default properties it is using for the Kafka. So these all properties you can define in the configuration file. For our demonstration purpose, we are just using some simple basic properties. Okay, so you can find these properties and its description in the official documentation of the Spring Cloud Stream documentation. Okay, now let's go back into the consumer. Now here you can see we are started receiving the message. Why it is printing this message? Because this is printing by this consumer, that is transaction consumer, and it is just printing the transaction that it is receiving. Now what we will do next, we will listen message on these two topic from the command prompt. Okay, so if you see we are producing message on these two topic, that is complaints report and the fraud alerts. We will listen this message on the command prompt. So let me open the command prompt. So I have opened three command prompts as we have three topics. So let's execute this command, that is docker execute. This will be the working directory. So let me expand this command prompt. So this is a working directory for the Kafka, that is a bin. And from it, this is the name of our Kafka broker. And here we are going to run the commands. Okay, so just execute this command. Same way do in the other command prompt as well. Now to see the list of topics that is created in the cluster, this is the command. So there is one file that is kafka-topic.sh in this directory. Just run this command. This is our bootstrap server, that is localhost:9092. And to see the list of topics, this is the -- list. And just execute this command. Now here you can see three topics. So from this command prompt, we are going to produce some message on the financial transaction topic. So this is the command for that. So in the bin directory, there is a file kafka-console-producer.sh. This is our server name, and -- and topic name will be this one. Let's copy paste from here just to avoid typos. So from here, we are going to send some data on this financial transaction topic. Same way, we are going to consume some message from the other topic. So let's use this command to consume message from the complaints report. So command will be this one. So for the consuming, you are going to use kafka-console-consumer.sh file. Then your bootstrap server, then -- topic. Topic name will be complaints report. And we need to provide the offset. Let's run the same command in the other command prompt as well. So this will be consumer for the fraud alert topic. And here as well, we are going to consume from the beginning. Okay. Now if you see, it is receiving the message and as well as producing the message. So let's say I am sending some data here. Definitely it will not get deserialized. If you see, it has thrown the exception because it is not able to convert that data into the transaction message on the consumer side. Now let me minimize this command prompt. So if you see in the real time, we have three consumers here. Here you can see transaction ID, let's say 1048. Same, it is consuming here and producing the complaints report. Here it is producing the fraud report. Okay, so you can see type is fraud found and transaction amount is exceeded the allowed limit. Same here for the complaints report. Okay, so this is how you can use the Cloud Stream for the Kafka integration. So let me summarize what configuration we did. So in the producer application, we define the producer using this destination, that is financial transaction. Same destination we use in the consumer side. And we are receiving the message from this topic, that is financial transaction. Now we have three consumers. First consumer, we are just printing the message. Second consumer, it is sending the message on the complaints report. And third consumer, sending the message on the fraud alerts. So that's it for this lecture. Thanks for watching the video.